One of the problems you may encounter, and I was encountering it hourly on this hunt, was wind changes. Generally, it's not a problem in the prairie, but we were having some very unique high pressure fronts coming through, and that meant southerly winds. And those southerly winds were light, and they were shifting.
That's a good wind.
Now to check this new location out, it was a heck, and that's putting it mildly, of a hike. We had to drop down in the river again because there were a lot of deer on the fields feeding and walk almost 1.5 miles of a river bottom to get up to where we could rattle with the wind in our face and the deer out on the field with the occasional buck cruising in the dark timber. First thing we saw when we popped up, a young spike buck come cruising right by us, had no idea in the world what we were, and went right out to the field. And I looked the location over and I was just thinking, this is great, let's start rattling, when all of a sudden, you know what hit me? Wind. I could feel it on my side and it was going right into the bedding cover where I figured a buck was going to come from. It happened so quick that I grabbed my gun, backed right out to the river bottom to channel my scent again, and made another big swing. There's been a lot of deer feeding on this field out here. We tried to get up close on the backside, but the wind switch backed out right away. Now we got a wind, it's coming off this bank. Looks like there's a bush up there. I'm gonna try to get to that bush, use that as a backdrop, and we'll do a little rattling. Probably even sit there for a few hours, because this is just a beautiful highway for deer. Easing up, there was a big bushy tree right there, one that I could kind of get in the shade of. And it's important, if you ever find shade, use it, because shade helps hide your form and movement. There isn't that glistening look about your face, on your rifle, anything that you're holding, and the shade keeps you cool when the heat was coming on, and the day was starting to heat up. This buck, he was on the hunt for me. Still didn't know how good he was, but I was ready. And that's key in this type of aggressive hunting action.
Can't tell how good he is. He's got some flight G2s though.
Because this buck got closer, I had my scope on 6 power, and the dude is cutting the distance to me. So I turned it down to 4 to make sure I had plenty of field of view in case things fell apart at the last minute. Here he comes, straight at me, through the brush again, but I was catching good enough glimpses of him that I thought it was probably time to put the hammer down. Super exciting action there. Now, I may sound like a broken record, but it's one reason I shoot a big caliber rifle. I had his quartering away shot right there. I had to take a snapshot to get him as he was kind of cutting to get out of there. But the 180 grain bullet, 300 Win Mag, dropped him. Let's go see what he is. Nice, nice buck. He come in just perfect to the antler rattling. He's a good buck. He's got nice split G2 on his right, kicker point on his left, really good brows. And he come in just excited to the horns. You know, he wasn't charging in, but these bucks that are savvy, you know, that have been around the block a few times, they don't necessarily just walk right into a big fight. They kind of feel it out, see what's going on. That's exactly what this buck here, he was doing. He was making sure that he was in the right fight, and apparently he picked the wrong one. I love to call whitetails But you know what I love more? Is to call them in an aggressive, in-their-face fashion. To do that right, you need several calls. The mainstay is your grunt call. That'll call in bucks on a quiet day or a windy day, depending on how close you are to them. That is the sound that can bring a buck running. Now this true talker from Hunter Specialties is superb in the fact that it's also got a bleat built right in, and you play it like a flute. Super great call to use, especially when the action is hot and you're trying to get that buck directed your way. Now the long distance call, well, you know what that one is. That's the rattle call. A great way to get a good sounding rattle and not have the bulk of antlers is to carry a rattle bag. They're lightweight, convenient, and you can get it out and get into the action fast, especially if you see a buck cutting across a woodlot and you want to bring him your way. Now, if you get one of those finicky bucks, you know, the kind that hangs up out there, not quite sure, the snort wheeze call. And Hunter Specialties makes the easy wheeze, and it is easy. That there is the Mac Daddy calls them all to tick a buck off. Any dominant buck hears that, it'll perk his ears up and wrinkle his hide. He'll come running. Yeah, I love to call whitetails, and these are the tools that I use to call them right in close.
Extreme Pursuits is brought to you by Polaris. See the hardest working, smoothest riding off-road vehicles now at your local dealer. Hunter's Specialties, for sportsmen, by sportsmen. Real Avid, true to the core. Nikon, the trusted name in optics. Truck Vault, manufacturers of the world's finest in vehicle secure storage systems. And by these other fine sponsors.